Okay, Jake, this is the last round. This is what it decides that who's gonna be forfeiting. Yes, what's the game? What's the challenge? Well, we made our airplanes, guys. So what do we need to do, Jake?
Simply put, we'll see who can throw their paper airplane furthest. I'm personally aiming from back wall.
Same.
Not bad, Narek. What do we think?
Better than you.
Let's go.
Ready, Jake? 3, 2, 1, go.
Honestly, I'm so angry right now.
Jake,
That was tragic.
what do you have to say?
That was awful. I'm so sorry to all my friends and family out there. Not happy.
Okay, guys, this is a bonus round. Whoever wins this gets a free points. So that will give Jake a chance to come back and win. Or if I win this round, and then I'm so sorry, he will forfeit. He's gonna forfeit. Forfeit. Anyway, let's do it. So the game is called Chubby Bunnies. It's very easy to play this game. So basically you have to put marshmallows in your mouth one by one, say Chubby Bunnies. Am I correct, Jim?
You are correct, Narek.
Great, so we're gonna do that. So I would start then.
Sure,
let's
let's
So great, we're gonna go. Chubby Bunnies.
Chubby bunnies.
Chubby Bunnies.
Chubby bunnies.
Chubby Bunnies.
Chubby bunny.
Chubby Bunnies.
Chubby bunny. Yeah. Shall I see how far I can go?
I want to know.
Chubby bunnies.
I know the winner is Jake, so. So Jake won this round! Also guys, these marshmallows are so good. They're amazing. It's Haribo's, you know.
Haribo marshmallows.
Haribo marshmallows.
£1
Yeah.
a pack.
£1 a pack. Yeah. Also, we're not sponsored by them, so we are doing this for education purposes. Ooh. I lost it.
You lost Narek. Narek, everyone's a winner with Jesus.
That is true. So, guys, after this, there's gonna be me doing a TikTok dance. What TikTok dance should I do?
Whichever one's the most embarrassing.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to work on my dance. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. There's a talk after this, and also, this is the last week of online, doing everything online, Sunday Youth Online. I don't know if that's a good news or bad news.
I think it's both.
It's both.
We get to see you in person now.
We get to see you in person, but also me and Jake are not gonna do any challenges anymore.
Online anyway.
Online anyway, yeah. We're gonna do it in person.
Yes.
But yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. There's a talk after this. Let's go watch that. See you all. Hello everyone, welcome to Sunday Youth Online. We have such amazing guest today. We got Dan Johnson with us. Dan, tell us who you are. Introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, hey youth, hey Narek, thanks for having me. My name is Dan Johnson. For those of you who don't know me, I am one of the curates, actually the curate now that Nick has gone at St Mark's Battersea Rise.
Great, thank you so much, Dan, for coming to this Zoom and joining us today to our Sunday Youth Online. Dan Johnson is a legend. He also likes kebab as well, guys.
This is true. Narek and I have shared many a kebab.
Yes, also he knows a lot of great food places, so... But guys, we're going to talk about Why Jesus, and today is going to be the last episode of Why Jesus. So we're going to finish Why Jesus series. But before I ask the great questions and important questions, I have one very important question from Dan. Dan, I haven't told you that I'm going to ask you this question, but this is a would you rather question.
Go on.
Would you rather every emotion that you have to show a color, so your color scheme would change every time you show emotion, or everything you say, right, the day before the tattoo of that would appear on your body?
Oh wow, man, I'll confess I don't like tattoos, but look, it's difficult for me with the first one as well, because I also am slightly colorblind. I can't tell the difference between blues and blacks and greens and that sort of thing. I think ultimately the tattoos would annoy my mum, so I'm going to have to go with the first one. My mum told me that she would only pay for me to go to university if I never got a motorbike or never got a tattoo.
Great.
She knows how to strike a deal, that woman.
Yeah, what a great deal. But yeah, amazing. So you would change your color and emotions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But what if like people would know what are your emotions? That's the only thing.
Well, that is the thing. I mean, I think it would be quite useful at some stage. You know, I think sometimes boys can not show their emotions enough, so maybe that would help me to actually have them out there and kicking around.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for answering this.
What about you on that one, Narek? What would your answer be?
I would go with tattoos.
Yeah, you're younger than me. That's the
yeah. I'll go. And also, I'm not saying anything bad. I say a lot of funny stuff. So imagine like kebabs all over my body. Cool.
Amazing.
Let's get into the main part. Let's get into the meat. Dan, my question to you is, why Jesus? Why do you believe in Jesus? What is the reason you believe in Jesus?
Sure.
It is yours.
Well, Narek asked me this like a week ago or so, and I had to delay filming because I was ill for a little bit. And it is just an incredible question. And you would think that having trained to be a vicar, I would be good at answering this question, but it really helped to really hone down a lot of my thinking over the years. And I think there's probably 5 different reasons, if I'm being honest, why I worship Jesus. Number one, I think, is his impact. But actually, let me kick off with a story, which is a friend of mine tells me this true story where he was stood at a bus stop many years ago, and he said there was a couple of young people, maybe 15, 16, boy and a girl, and he said they were draped over each other in a manner suggestive of a high level of physical intimacy. In other words, they were just snogging away. And he said, as they were just snogging, a couple of teenage girls came in behind them and were waiting in the bus stop. And one of the girls looked around and looked at this couple, and she looked at the man, or looked at the boy, and said, I really don't see what she sees in him. And my friend said that he then turned around to look at this boy, and he was like, yeah, he's not the best example of masculinity I've ever seen. And I think that's the difference with Jesus, really. For some of us, he is our entire world. We understand why we worship him. But for many other people, they simply don't see what we see in him. And I think that was my starting point. So I was an atheist, and that was my position for many, many years. In fact, I came from a family which was culturally Jewish, but like many Jews, were atheistic. So I was probably an atheist from about the age of 6 or 7. And I knew that there were Christians, but I really had no interest in it myself. I couldn't see, if I'm to be honest, what they saw in Jesus. But the funny thing happened that when I got older and I began to travel a bit, I noticed, and I began to notice the impact that Jesus has had on the world. And it was really quite profound and unlike anyone else who I had come across. And I don't know, Narek, have you been to Paris?
No, I want to go.
Oh man, you've got to get over there. It's incredible. But I remember going to Paris, and in the middle of Paris, there is the Sacre-Cœur Cathedral. It's set on this hill, and it's just beautiful. And I remember sitting on a seat in the middle of the Sacre-Cœur, and there's this enormous picture of Jesus on the ceiling. And I just remember thinking, how did this man have such an impact in like every European city I've ever been to? You know, if you go to Rome or Sicily or Milan or Munich, in the center of those cities, Jesus has the prime real estate and a massive building dedicated to him in the middle of all of them. You know, how did that happen? Why has his impact been so amazing? And how, you know, I grew up in England. How is there a building in every village and town and city dedicated to Jesus, sometimes multiple ones? How has this happened? What's the best explanation for it? And so that really challenged me as an atheist. You know, his impact was everywhere. In fact, there was another way, Narek, where I looked at this impact, which really, I think, began my search for Jesus. And that was one of the ways that he had impacted the world, is how he had impacted time. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. You know, I don't know who you think are the most famous people alive today, whether it's Beyonce or Kanye West or Malala or, you know, Greta Thunberg. Who do you think are the most famous people alive today, Narek?
Justin Bieber.
Yeah, I guess so. The quality's gone down.
Queen of England.
Oh, the Queen. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a brilliant example. But, you know, I'm sure all the people I've named, all the people you could name, are really talented people. And I'm sure they've achieved like amazing things. They've come up with brilliant art or science or whatever it is, cultural things. But no one is suggesting, you know, that when any of these people die, we should stop time and then mark our own lives from the moment they died. You know, I was born in 1975, 1,975 years after the death of Jesus. You know, if you're watching this, your life is measured in relation to a man who lived 2,000 years ago, who worked for 3 years in this funny backwater of the Roman Empire, and who was killed on a Roman cross. Why on earth does this man manage to break time? And I just think his impact is just incredible. So that's really the first one. Are you ready for another one?
Go for it, Dan. You
Excellent.
are making great points here.
So I think the second reason I believe in Jesus is I just think he's entirely unique. You know, later on in my life, I probably should have said this in the introduction, that I went on to teach about other faiths, particularly about Islam. So I've lectured in Islamic studies for about 15 years in theological colleges and universities, in churches, in conferences. And one of the things that's fascinated me about other faiths is they are both fascinating and they are profound. But the people at the center of them, the people at the center of these other faiths, they sort of have the same frailties and the same faults as human beings, as any other human being I've met. In other words, they have the same sort of frailties and faults as I have. So, for example, Muhammad, fascinating individual, you know, a poet, a governor, he was a military leader. But unlike Jesus, he never claims to be God. In fact, there's a verse in the Quran, in chapter 7 of the Quran, where he says, you know what, I'm only a warner and a bearer of glad tidings. So he's essentially pointing away from himself. He's not saying, look at me. He's trying to point towards God. And then I studied Buddhism actually for a bit and do some talks on Buddhism still. And the Buddha was a man called Siddhartha Gautama, and he was obsessed with why suffering existed. And he essentially, when you read his readings, he is a man who is trying to work out the world as he discovers it and as he begins to explain what Buddhism is. Now, what I think makes Jesus entirely unique is when you look at him and you look at his teachings, unlike Muhammad and Buddha, Jesus wasn't trying to work out how the world worked. It was like he came to it and he already understood it. Jesus was different. He wasn't trying to work out the world. In fact, although he comes to talk about God, he's happy to point to himself to explain who God is. And this is why some of the Jews at the time accused him of blasphemy. They said, Jesus, you, a mere man, are claiming to be God. So I think one of the unique things about Jesus is, compared to other faiths, is most other faiths at the center of them have a character who is pointing you away from themselves towards God. Jesus himself points you towards himself, and that's what makes him unique. In fact, you know, I was doing one of my first talks about Islam at Epsom Baptist Church many years ago, and a woman came up to me afterwards, and she asked me a question. She said, would you ever consider converting to Islam? And I thought, that's a really good question, and I really haven't thought about an answer to that. So I prayed in the moment, and I said to her, you know, people say that you only really appreciate English if you've studied Latin, because Latin is a precursor to English. And I said, you know what? Now that I've studied a major world faith, I really do recognize the absolute uniqueness of Jesus. So that's my second reason for believing in Jesus. Do you fancy a third one?
Oh, yes. I will fancy third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth.
Wow, be careful what you wish for, Narek. So I think the third reason I worship Jesus and believe in Jesus is because I couldn't break him. As I said at the beginning of this, okay, I was an atheist. There are two types of atheists in the world. There are atheists who really want to believe but just can't bring themselves to, but are quite polite. And then there's sort of antagonistic atheists, more like your Richard Dawkins type. I was more like that. I was absolutely horrible to the Christians I went to school with. I mean, they were fairly horrible to me as well. But we didn't get on well. But you know, one of the reasons I worship Jesus is because I couldn't break him. And let me just unpack that for you. So when I was growing up, my dad reminded me of this recently, that he would come home and he would come into my room and he would find that my TV in my room was just in bits. And one of the ways I thought that was a good way to try and test something out and get to know something, how it worked, was essentially to try and take it apart. And in my case, to break it. And so I sort of took that approach to life and I applied it to Christianity. And I thought, you know what, I'm an atheist. I can't take apart Christianity like a physical thing, like I would with a TV. But what I can do is I can try and throw as much mud at it as I want, as I can. And so really I kicked off with the church. You know, I threw as much mud at the church as I could. And to be quite honest, I got quite a bit of it to stick. You know, the church has been involved in some horrible things over the years, whether that be abuse of human beings, wars, all manner of sort of hypocrisy. And if I were to throw the same mud at the church today, I dare say some of it would still stick. But if I'm to be honest, I soon realised that I really had the wrong target in mind, because Christianity never asks you to believe in the church. It asks you to join it, but it doesn't say this is what you're committing to. And so I felt that the real target I should be throwing mud at was not the church, it was actually Jesus himself. And so what I did is I began to try and throw mud at Jesus. And, you know, I read the New Testament, I asked difficult questions of it as my way of throwing mud at it. And occasionally I felt like I would get some of that mud to stick. Then I would ask Christian friends about difficult bits and difficult things Jesus said, and that mud would slowly sort of drip off. And eventually I just discovered that I really couldn't get any of that mud to stick at all. And in fact, because I couldn't get any of that mud to stick, I thought, you know what, I've encountered the sort of person that actually I could worship. He was so different in that sense. So yeah, that's the third reason. You want another one?
Go for it.
Great. I think the fourth reason is how Jesus dealt with the human condition. Now, let me unpack that just a little bit. Another reason I worship Jesus is because what he's done for me. You know, most faiths across the world have something in common. And that is a starting point. And it's the idea, very simply, that there is something wrong with the world. And having agreed that there is something wrong with the world, every other faith will then tell you, this is what you should do to sort your situation or to sort the world out. But the thing I love about Jesus is he doesn't do that. He doesn't tell you what you need to do. Rather, he points to the cross and he says, done. And that makes him so different. He's not trying to dress you up in law. He doesn't tell you what to do. He points to his death and he says, it is done. So that's the fourth reason. You got time for one more now, Eric?
Go for it. For one more.
Excellent. Fine. So the fifth reason I believe and worship Jesus is because I think history tells us the truth about him. You know, there's a sort of an argument that's made by atheists, and I made this when I was an atheist, that actually Jesus never really claimed to be God, that it was a thing that we added on as the church sort of a few hundred years after his death. And lots of people are convinced by that essentially the church has made Jesus into something that he wasn't. One of the reasons that I actually changed my mind about that was actually I just sort of said, right, well, let's abandon the New Testament as a witness. What do the historians who were concurrent to Jesus living and the disciples living say about him? Because they are not biased. And I just want to give you one example of a guy called Pliny who lived around the time of the disciples. He's a fascinating guy. He's a Roman governor. And actually, he was a hostile witness in terms of historicity. He did not like Christians. In fact, he wrote this letter to the authorities in Rome, and he asked what was the most appropriate way to talk to the Christians so that they might stop worshipping Jesus. So this is not a man that's inclined to sort of make up stuff about Jesus. But this is what he says in a letter that he wrote to the emperor. He spoke about the Christians and he said, the Christians meet on a fixed day each week and sing songs to Christ as if to God. And we know this is one of the earliest historians at the same time the disciples are writing down the New Testament. And he is saying, actually, from the very first, these Christians met on the same day each week. They got together and they worshipped Jesus. They sang songs to him as if to God. And I thought, it's not just the New Testament witness that makes Jesus the Son of God. It's the historical evidence outside the New Testament as well. So that's my fifth reason. Now, Narek, I'd like to end with what I think is just an amazing summary of Jesus's life, and maybe encourage people to listen to it and to close their eyes and just consider his uniqueness. What do you reckon?
Let's do that.
Excellent. Guys, thank you so much. Can I just encourage you to close your eyes and maybe just rest in an attitude of prayer? And I'm just going to read something to you. It's called One Solitary Life. He was born in an obscure village, the child of a peasant woman. He was raised in still another village where he worked in a carpenter's shop. And then for 3 years, he was an itinerant preacher. He never wrote a book. He never had a family. He never traveled more than a few hundred miles from the place where he was born. In short, he did not do any of the things one normally associates with greatness. He was only 33 when the tide of public opinion turned against him. His friends ran away, and he was turned over to his enemies. He was nailed to a cross between two thieves, whilst the executioners gambled for his clothing, the only property he had on earth. And when he was dead, he was laid in a borrowed grave. 21 centuries have come and gone, but the world is still enthralled by him. All the armies that ever marched, or the navies that ever sailed, or the parliaments that ever sat, or the kings that ever reigned, put together, have not affected the life of man on this planet as much as that one single, solitary life. Say what you want about Jesus. He is unique. Amen.
Amen. Oh, Dan, May, thank you so much for
Pleasure.
reasons and the prayer at the end. What we read at the end. It was really great. Yeah, thank you so much. You're a legend.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. Good to see you. I hope you guys have a great time at youth.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching this. And yeah, this is our last online session on Sundays. Yeah, last Sunday Youth Online. Dan, thank you so much being with us. Have a great week, guys. Have a great week. And see you all.
See you guys. Bye. Bye.